Training video feedback is one of the lowest hanging fruit for creating better client outcomes. Whether you self-coach your own athlete process or whether you coach a whole roster full of athletes, this is where we drive the hypertrophy stimulus. And I think it's really important to understand what we're going to cover today is the coach's role in providing feedback and then the athlete's role in implementation, so that we can start to look at how do we deliver this feedback in an effective manner and make sure that they create better training habits that deliver higher levels of hypertrophy over the long term. If you go into level one, I kind of dive deep into the first part of this, which is the video analysis section of where to take video footage from. I break down multiple different angles for different patterns for you to make sure that you're getting video footage that is going to show you exactly what's going wrong with their execution. And that's going to be the biggest first step for getting training footage from a client. If you go in there and actually made a downloadable PDF for you to use with your clients to kind of take that headache out for you. So just hop in there, download it, and make sure that you grab that. Before we go into the second step, which is the organization piece and the feedback piece that we're going to be between athlete and coach. So the first step in the client to coach dynamic is the organization of the training footage within the check-ins. It's, as a coach, or if you've coached other people, you know the client that just constantly blows you up every single day with training footage. It's an unorganized way to receive that training footage and things end up getting missed. So one of the clients that I work with, she does a really, really good job keeping everything organized. So you can go into like where I keep her check-ins in the photo log. You can see she has her check-in photos here, and then she also has her training footage, and it's broken down into a per session setup so that I can go in and make sure that I address every movement pattern that we're watching across the entirety of the training block from each different session. This also keeps it organized so that you know what the goal of each pattern is based on how you wrote the program, and you can make sure that the execution matches the goal that you're trying to accomplish within that particular session, because there are different goals for different patterns, and we need to make sure that it matches what we wrote the session for. Now, the next piece is going to be the feedback and then the implementation piece. So with each week, as you work through these training footage, you need to be consistent with how you give feedback. My favorite way to give feedback is just commenting on each video so that they have that organized per video and they have that feedback to go through. For her, one of the biggest things we were working on is just making sure her squat pattern was in a position that she gets a lot out of it, but also is something that keeps her safe. In her original video that she submitted as a part of like the onboarding process, it was a free barbell back squat. And we saw a couple things that included a little bit of a hitch in the squat pattern, a little bit of a hip shift that could be a potential danger over the long term. And you can kind of see it in some of the footage that we collected in that initial. So the biggest pivot for her was to move into a Smith machine squat. Now, a lot of times with Smith machine squats, if you're pivoting from a free bar, something that clients will struggle with is where to put their feet relative to the bar path, and then what that looks like in footage. So in week one footage that we received back, you can kind of see the commentary here. The squat pattern is a really solid squat pattern, but the foot placement is too far back relative to the bar path. It does create a little bit of a hitch at the bottom. It's a really solid squat. It's like a 9.5 out of 10. But when you're coaching people that are trying to pull the most out of your process, it's these little details that are going to make the difference. So you can see the commentary over to the right about the slight shift in foot position. And this is where Mads really shines as a client, and where you as the coach needs to make sure you stay on top of the fact that the athlete is then going in and implementing the feedback that you give back. Because you telling someone to make a change is part one, and then part two is the athlete actually taking that and then using it within their process. So when we look at the video that's a follow-up for the actual implementation of this, this is actually the follow-up video where you can see that foot is much more centered relative to the bar path. The squat pattern is perfect with very little hitch and no hitch at all. And she's actually taking the feedback that we're using and doing this across every single pattern. This is someone as an athlete that's extremely organized, understands the efficiency and the efficacy of making sure that training is the biggest piece of your process, as it does drive the hypertrophy stimulus. And this is how this client to coach dynamic should work. We should get consistent training footage by using the angles built out in the video analysis PDF. We should be giving feedback consistently as a part of the check-in in a way that you can deliver your information concisely and accurately to each video that's submitted. And then we need to follow up and make sure that they're actually implementing that on the back end. This is where, as you coach someone over time, the training footage shouldn't drop off and not be a part of the check-ins at all. maybe you have less training footage to go over as you get into week 5 and week 10 and week 15 of someone's athlete process with you. But the reality of this is that training drives hypertrophy. If you're not consistently submitting training footage and consistently making sure that the changes you're trying to make are implemented, especially for weak body parts, then that's going to be something that you are leaving progress on the table. I jokingly told Mads with some of the lat training that we're making a lot of fixes to, which as a figure competitor is something she needs to bring up the most, that she can stop sending me training footage when she's able to fly off the Burj Khalifa because she has so much lat development. And so this is like the reality of coaching is like, yeah, sure, she's fixed a lot from week 1 and week 2 and implemented that into her training. But as a weak body part, I need to make sure that those habits stay consistent because people are going to creep back into their old habits. They're going to get into a place where they're not driving the stimulus to the body part that you need it to be. And even if you're running specialized program design, it's not going to create the outcome that you want to see over the long term. Don't sleep on training footage. It is your biggest tool as a coach to make sure that your program design drives the adaptation that you want. And the way that you deliver that feedback to the client is one of the most important aspects of your coaching process.